Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Hello and welcome to the Skeptic Zone, episode number 436 for the 26th of February 2017. Richard Saunders here with you from slightly overcast but a bit cooler, thank goodness, Sydney, Australia. I hope we have seen the end of the heat waves until next year, and I'm looking forward to some cooler days ahead. Coming up on this week's episode of The Skeptic Zone, an old favourite returns. Dr Rachie, Dr Rachael Dunlop, who's currently working and studying in the United States, brings us a report in Dr Rachie Reports about the Health Ranger, one Mike Adams, and his recent troubles and tribulations with Google and Google searches. It looks like Google's had enough of Mike Adams and his outrageous website. Find out what the story is behind the story with Dr Rachie Reports, the welcome return of Dr Rachie, coming up at the top of the show. Following that, it's an update to a story we brought you last week about a therapeutic touch clinic in a university here in Australia. Therapeutic touch, magic touch, healing touch. You may well remember this is where people wave their hands over patients or other people and think they are manipulating energies unknown to science. That's sort of it in a nutshell, nutcase. Find out the update to the story we brought you last week, coming up a bit later on. Also coming up, it's Take Stock with Shelley Stocken. Shelley's going to be looking at the interesting case we have of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. teaming up, it seems, with the actor Robert De Niro in trying to offer some sort of a prize about the safety of vaccine. It's all very confusing. Anyway, Shelley has a very interesting take on this whole matter. That's Take Stock with Shelley Stocken. Also, as ever, it's Brew Ha Ha from AustraliaScience.tv, this week with Ben Lewis looking at heat and keeping your cool in the heat. Then I read a report I wrote last year about Paracon. Paracon, the paranormal convention being held for the last few years here in Australia. I think the latest news I heard is the one this year looks like it's not going ahead, which is a pity because it was always very interesting. Nevertheless, hear about Paracon 2016 from my point of view. I was a guest speaker. Then to round off the show, we have a magic spell. We have the reading of a spell. It's called a binding spell that's being put out there. Witches all around the world are encouraged, it seems, to read or recite or invoke, whatever they do, a spell against Donald Trump. Goodness me, I wonder if the Secret Service are worried. We're going to read you this spell, see what you think. It's I think it's a bit of fun, really. I hope it's a bit of fun. That's magic spells and Donald Trump coming up at the end of the show. Now, before we get stuck into the first report with Dr. Rachie, a little update. Now, this is to do with the movie Vaxxed, which we report about frequently. What I would encourage all listeners to do for an update on the current situation, rather than me tell you all about it, which would take a while, please listen to the ESP, the European Skeptics podcast, and I'll add a link in the show notes. Their latest episode covers this topic very well. We have special guest Michael Marshall, our old friend Marsh from the UK, and Fiona O'Leary from Ireland, who is very interested and passionate about this topic. So head for the ESP podcast, links in the show notes. I certainly encourage all listeners to listen to that podcast anyway. I enjoy it every week. Well, that's enough for me at the moment. I'm going to run downstairs, open the fridge, get out a nice seafood mix, little bits of mussel and calamari and little bits of fish. Put them in the pan, a bit of white sauce. Yes, stir them up, cook some pasta, some lovely tricoloured pasta. I like that stuff. and maybe a bit of salt and pepper for seasoning, a few mixed vegetables. It's going to take a while. While I do all that, I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone.
Now it's time for Dr Rachie Reports with Dr Rachael Dunlop.
Hello listeners and welcome to Dr Rachie Reports. After a long absence, I am back to talk to you about Mike Adams and natural news. Some of you may be aware that on Wednesday, February 22nd, natural news was delisted by Google. Now all 140,000 pages of the quackiest, most anti-science website on the internet were suddenly not appearing in Google searches. If you're not familiar with natural news, and as a skeptic you should be, because keep your friends close and your enemies closer, as they say, it's a natural health website that sells everything from water filters to superfoods, has never met a conspiracy theory it doesn't like, loves Trump and hates vaccines. Mike Adams, or the Health Ranger, as he calls himself, is the founder. He's a self-styled scientist who screeches about liberty and freedom, claims that Sandy Hook was a false flag, that the 2012 Aurora cinema shooting was a result of antidepressants. He's an AIDS denier. He hates Big Pharma. He's a birther, a 9/11 truther. And he regularly abuses his critics by publishing ranting and frankly libelous blogs about them. If you're interested in looking this up, search for Dr. David Gorski and Mike Adams. So not only is the information on his site usually inaccurate, it's also offensive. Mike Adams has gone so far as to ask anti-GMO activists to kill scientists and science journalists. In a blog post, he wrote, quote, "It is the moral right and even the obligation of human beings everywhere to actively plan and carry out the killing of those engaged in heinous crimes against humanity." The blog post was entitled Biotech Genocide, Monsanto Collaborators and the Nazi Legacy of Science as Justification for Murder. So as you might expect, Adams' response to the Google delisting was very rational and calm. He said in an interview on a podcast, quote, "They're literally coming for us. We are really the only thing standing in their way, in between the globalists and their total global domination plan. And they might be exposed as the pedophiles that they are, and they are willing to nuke a city. The end justifies the means. You are witnessing a modern-day high-tech lynching. Google has become a dangerous monopoly that's suppressing human knowledge. Its unlawful and politically motivated censorship must be stopped for the health and safety of all Americans." Yes, not a little bit hysterical, is it? So here's what Mike Adams thinks happened. He says that he was approached last week to take down Alex Jones. And Alex Jones, some of you will know, is the host and the founder of InfoWars, which is an equally conspiracy-ridden hysterical site online. He was offered $50,000 to take down Alex Jones. He doesn't explain what the takedown means, but he refused to do so, and he says that this is a consequence of him refusing to do so, is in that they are now coming after him. Now, the response from Google has been a lot less conspiracy-ridden and insane. Google has said what happened, and this information comes from Mike Adams, so I cannot confirm the accuracy of this statement. But Mike Adams said on a blog that Google says Natural News have breached their terms of service by running an unapproved ad network on 13 blog pages hosted on a subdomain by Natural News. Now this, if it's true, suggests that as soon as Natural News fixes this and removes this ad network, Google will reinstate the site. But Mike insists that this explanation is bullshit, in his own words.
Is complete bullshit.
Regardless of whether this is the case, and this is just a technical thing that has resulted in the website being delisted, Mike's already descended way down the rabbit hole to care about facts and evidence. Well, not that he ever did, to be honest. He's responded by creating a White House petition to save natural news, which already has 40,000 signatures but needs 100,000, so tell your friends. And he started a grassroots social media campaign called #SaveNaturalNews and #BoycottGoogle. He's also calling for Trump to intervene because it's all a conspiracy, of course. It always is with these people. So here's a little excerpt from one of the podcasts Mike has put out in the last few days. He's been frantic and prolific about reporting on this issue. So here he is in his own words.
Why is the health ranger so dangerous that an order from the deep state had to be issued? In my view, this is what I think happened. To censor natural news based on some arcane technicality that they could find and justify, even though they don't apply the same rules to their own websites. In other words, Google has now had to decloak, like Klingons. They've had to decloak to fire this assault against free speech. But in decloaking, it's revealing who they really are. They are truly evil. They have become the evil that they once said they would fight against. They have become the Ministry of Truth. They have become Orwellian. They are engaged in outright, outrageous censorship. They will silence voices that they don't like based on their opinions alone. And they are a monopoly over the search market in the internet, online, everywhere. These are dangerous times, my friends. Dangerous times.
There's Mike Adams himself. So interestingly, and this is not necessarily related to this particular case, but some people may recall that in 2015, Google actually proposed to stop ranking results based on an algorithm that favors popularity and instead to give a strong preference to websites and posts that are actually factually correct. But I'm not aware that Google has plans to shut down sites altogether that contain inaccurate information. But none of this matters to Mike Adams, the health ranger. At the time of going to air, the site is still not indexed. There's no indication of what is happening, whether it is being reinstated. And Mikey is still throwing toys out of the pram and claiming censorship and conspiracy as he does best. We wait to see what happens, but in the meantime, the tantrums are epic. And until next time, this has been Dr. Rachie Reports.
From the dawn of time, one podcast has unlocked the secrets of science and technology to enrich the lives of billions. And now, after a year where they've unlocked the golden age of knowledge, they're about to hit warp speed and go stratospheric.
Wait, hold up.
On Oh No, Ross and Carrie, we don't make extraordinary claims. We investigate them.
We go undercover with fringe religious groups, investigate paranormal claims, and we participate in pseudoscientific medical treatments and then report our findings to you.
And yes, we've even investigated Scientology.
Shh, Ross, shh. New episodes every month at MaximumFun.org.
Oh No, Ross and Carrie. They show up so you don't have to.
Well, remember that last week we brought you the story of James Cook University in Townsville in North Queensland, far North Queensland, that was operating on its campus a therapeutic touch or healing touch or magic touch or insert your pseudoscience here, touch clinic. And in the past week, or since the news broke, should I say, they received no end of derision, ridicule, comment, all that sort of stuff. So we'd like to announce an update, and this comes courtesy of the Australian Skeptics website, skeptics.com.au, which we frequently refer to, by Tim Mendham, published on the 21st of February 2017. Update. James Cook University, JCU, closes Healing Touch Clinic. James Cook University has issued a short statement saying that it has closed a Healing Touch Clinic that had been operating on its Townsville campus. Quote, the clinic had been run by Healing Touch Townsville, with clinics conducted for a few hours every fortnight in a JCU building on the campus. JCU had no contractual or financial relationships with the clinic and was not involved in the running of the clinic. JCU staff were not employed to work at the clinic. James Cook University has decided that the clinic will no longer operate on its campus. JCU does not promote nor teach healing touch in its science-based nursing programs, end quote. Healing, or therapeutic touch, as it is promoted, is a pseudoscience through and through. It might be nice to have someone wave their hands over you, enabling the practitioners to detect and manipulate what they say is the patient's energy field, but it is similar and just as scientific, i.e. not, as Reiki and the laying on of hands, practices of faith healers. By the way, don't stand at the foot of a patient, as you might get bad energy flicked all over you by the practitioner. Now, as an aside, that refers to the video supplied last week via the ABC website, ABC in Australia, where the practitioner was waving her hands over a patient, ending up at his foot and drawing negative energy out through his shoes. Yep, it looked as ridiculous as it sounds. The university said the clinic had nothing to do with them. However, some of the issues raised included that the clinic was located in a university building on campus that they had leased out to various organisations. A senior lecturer at JCU's College of Health Care Sciences, Centre for Nursing and Midwifery Research, was a supporter. She also promoted a, quote, Healing Touch Level 1 Masterclass, end quote, on the university's website last year. And a practitioner had been photographed wearing a JCU shirt. The revelations about the clinic's association with the university, however tenuous, obviously hurt. So congratulations for them for eventually acting decisively. The Healing Touch Clinic is now looking for a new home, quote, due to recent events, end quote. And again, thank you to Tim Mendham at Australian Skeptics, skeptics.com.au for that update on the Healing Touch, Magic Touch, Wishful Thinking Touch story. And yes, if you want to have a good laugh, check the show notes and see this in action, or you can simply Google Healing Touch, Therapeutic Touch, and see people waving their hands over other people. It's really does seem to be a classic case of the deluded treating the deluded. I mean, well, put yourself in the shoes, as long as the energy doesn't pour out through the shoes, of maybe an elderly patient. Why not? Why not give it a go? There's some nice nurse or someone calling themselves a practitioner willing to spend time with you, and yeah, I can see the appeal. The pity is, it doesn't do anything. Thank you to the Australian Skeptics website, skeptics.com.au. Go there now. You can read lots of news stories like that. Scroll down to the bottom of the main page, the home page, and you can sign up for the Australian Skeptics newsletter, direct to your inbox, with news and information as it happens from Australian Skeptics. And there are links there to the Australian Skeptics Twitter feed as well, and a link, of course, to the Skeptic magazine. And while you're there, you can help yourself to over 35 years of issues free to download. skeptics.com.au.
Hi, this is Heidi Robertson from the Northern Rivers Vaccination Supporters. We are a group of concerned citizens dedicated to promoting good science and common sense in our region, the far north coast of New South Wales. This area, famous for its natural beauty and relaxed lifestyle, also has the lowest rates of vaccination in Australia. We are out to change that by challenging the myths and misinformation and by providing good evidence-based information to the community. We'd love for you, no matter where you are in the world, to join our fight. Please visit our webpage at www.nrvs.info. We also have a link there to our Facebook page. Tweet us at NRVaxSupporters, that's VAX, and check us out on Wikipedia by searching for Northern Rivers vaccination supporters. Thank you.
Interesting claims. Questioning. Take stock with Shelley Stocken.
Hi, I'm Shelley Stocken, and today I'm talking about anti-vaccine actors. By now, you've probably heard about the press conference held last week by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and his World Mercury Project, which launched a challenge to find, quote, a peer-reviewed scientific study demonstrating that thimerosal is safe in the amounts contained in vaccines currently being administered to American children and pregnant women, end quote. Prominently featured in the promotion of this challenge and present at the media conference was Robert De Niro, who most recently dipped his toe in the cauldron of vaccine denial when he included, then cancelled, a showing of Andrew Wakefield's Vaxxed documentary at his 2016 Tribeca Film Festival. I, like many others watching on, have been asking myself, what has De Niro got to do with vaccine safety? He's an actor, for crying out loud. If, like me, you've ever applauded a performance by De Niro in a feature film, the sight of him sitting, mostly mute, at this outpouring of well-worn, debunked anti-vaccine tropes parading as a press conference is both sad and baffling. Sad because it's hard to accept that De Niro, who has an autistic son, has been tempted by the poisoned apple of vaccine denialism. Baffling because even if De Niro had a strong, evidence-based message to share concerning vaccine safety, sitting on a stool in a press club with his mouth shut isn't a very good way to share it. De Niro's an actor. His most effective medium of communication is film. So I thought, why don't I pitch him a screenplay so he can really get his, or rather Kennedy's, message across to his usual audience? So here it is, my pitch. I hope you're listening, Mr. De Niro, as I present to you Finding Mercury, a film by me. The opening credits fade as we begin the first scene. Interior, Police Chief Kennedy's office. Day. Detective De Niro enters. De Niro, you wanted to see me, sir? Kennedy, close the door. De Niro closes the door behind him, looking interested. Kennedy, I got something for you. Something big. De Niro, what kind of thing? Kennedy, it's kind of a missing persons case. De Niro, whoa. You know that's not my style. I do funny grandpas, mobsters, stuff like that. Kennedy, don't give me any shtick over this. You're all we have. De Niro, what about Wakefield, Big Tree, one of those guys? Kennedy, they ain't doing so well at the box office, if you know what I mean. De Niro, okay. What exactly am I looking for? Kennedy, we want you to find safe vaccines. De Niro, safe? What exactly do you mean by safe? Kennedy, well, you know, vaccines without thimerosal mercury in them. De Niro, wasn't mercury removed from all vaccines in the childhood schedule back in the 90s? Kennedy, God damn it, you'll have to go deeper than that, De Niro. Get out, and don't come back until you find me a safe vaccine according to my very specific definition of safe, which could change at any time. Time passes. Exterior, a park bench in a city somewhere. Day. Police Chief Kennedy sits on a bench in civilian clothes, feeding pigeons. As Detective De Niro approaches, he looks up, giving a slight nod hello. De Niro, Chief? Kennedy, it's a good day for good news, Bob. You got any? De Niro sits down slowly next to Kennedy on the bench. They both look out into the distance. De Niro, thing is, Chief, I asked around. I spoke to doctors, nurses, scientists, busy moms, and they all pointed to the kids. Kids, Chief. Thousands of them running around, in playgrounds, schools, malls, everywhere. It was as if they'd never even heard of polio or mumps or subacute sclerosing panencephalitis. And you know what? Kennedy, tell me. De Niro, not one of those kids could tell me where the safe vaccines were. Not one. I got nothing for you, Chief. Kennedy looks down at his feet. I knew it. There are no safe vaccines. Fade out.
And now, direct from the cafe at Australia's Science Channel, it's Brew Ha Ha with Ben Lewis.
It's hot across Australia, so let's talk survival. If you don't drink enough water to replace the extra sweat you're losing, your blood could become so thick your heart will have trouble pumping it around your body. Then if your organs don't get enough blood, eventually they'll stop working. And you don't need us to tell you that's a bad thing. Meanwhile, the heat can affect you directly. At some point, your body just says no more. If your core temperature rises to above 40 degrees, your body essentially cooks itself from the inside out. The cells that make up your organs become damaged, and that causes your organs to start shutting down. In extreme cases, it can even cause cells to die. And once that happens, there's no going back. It's kind of like a computer shutting itself off when it overheats. If the circuit melts, you're never turning it back on. So keep drinking water, keep the air moving around you to help evaporate sweat, and don't stay outside for too long. But it's looking like our summers are going to be more brutal no matter what, so we're just going to have to cope. So stay cool out there, folks.
For more Brew Ha Ha and Australian science, head for www.australiascience.tv. A paranormal convention right here in Sydney, Australia. But I thought I would read to you my report of the paranormal convention, Paracon, last year. Now, listeners may remember that Maynard and I reported live, well, almost live, from Paracon in 2016, and you can hear those interviews and reports on episode number 397 and 398 of the Skeptic Zone from May and June 2016. But the overall report, as published in the pages of The Skeptic, the magazine from Australian skeptics, is as follows. Skeptical adventures at a paranormal convention. Richard Saunders reports on Paracon held at the Carrington Hotel, Katoomba, in the Blue Mountains west of Sydney, 28th to the 29th of May 2016. In 2014, Skeptic Zone reporter Maynard and I attended a day at Paracon, a paranormal conference held at the Old Maitland Jail. We were treated well and had an interesting day attending talks and interviewing various speakers. Those interviews can be heard by listening to the Skeptic Zone, number 290. Some months ago, I was asked by the organisers of this year's event if I would like to give a talk, and I jumped at the chance. Upon arrival at the Carrington Hotel, I was greeted enthusiastically by Alex Caius, the director of the event, whom I'd met several times before. There was very little in the way of formalities, so I soon found myself in the first session of the day, and talked by the American ghost hunter Brian Cano. He told us of paraphilosophy, a term he coined as a mashup of paranormal and philosophy. But I fear the talk was a little lost on me, as it didn't seem to have a coherent thread. He is also one of the many I have met who state, quote, "I used to be a skeptic," end quote. Now he calls himself a, quote, "skeptical believer," end quote, and I guess that means whatever he wants it to mean. One of the things it does mean, for him at least, is the belief that animal spirits, or their energy, whatever that means, can inflict real scratch marks on people. I was interested, however, to hear him criticise those who use dowsing and do table tipping to contact the spirits. Until he comes up with good evidence for spirits using his methods, we must assume that dowsing and table tipping are as good as any other methods believers use to contact the dead. Nevertheless, he was an entertaining speaker. Next up was a talk that seemed to be trying to be at least somewhat skeptical, but never really made it that far. Getting the living to listen, critically exploring mediumship for better investigations. The presenter, Andrea Caldi, told us she was herself a medium, and the talk was not about how to convince skeptics. A pity, as she claims to have been visited by a spirit who told her details about missing people. She did, however, touch on some issues skeptics have known for many years, including the feedback loop created by believers reinforcing the delusions of those psychics and such who really believe in their own powers, also known as shut-eyes. Towards the end of her talk, she quoted John Horgan, who recently spoke at the NCESS Nexus event in New York. Horgan's talk, an attack on the skeptical movement, has been widely criticised by, amongst others, Dr. Steve Novella. As it seems, he simply missed the point of the movement and is one of the endless number of people who think the skeptics, in the words of David Gorski, quote, "should stop caring about what you care about and care about what I care about instead because it's so much more important than what you care about," end quote. However, this talk has given pseudo-ammunition to various groups. Australian big cats. Yes, panthers and possibly lions were next on my list of talks. However, what was presented was photo after photo and video after video of feral cats, which, while not unexpected, was somewhat disappointing. We also heard an audio recording made some years ago of a woman whose car was attacked by a sound effect of a tiger or leopard. Maybe I'm being unfair, but it did sound for all the world like a Hollywood sound effect. But then again, I was not there at the time. Following that, I viewed a pilot for a hoped-for new Australian TV series, PI Uncut, which more or less followed ghost investigations, Yowie hunters, and UFO believers in an uncritical look at their adventures. Sadly, while the show was very well shot and produced, no good evidence for the paranormal was forthcoming, but I don't think that was the point. It was good in a nostalgic sort of way to see long-time Yowie, big cat, river monster hunter Rex Gilroy in attendance. While I did not hear him talk, he was on hand in the bookstore with many of his prized collection of plaster of Paris footprints, allegedly made by what can only be described as very, very, very large animals, including giant birds, cats, and yes, yowies. Seeing these plaster casts up close is impressive and not impressive at the same time. They seem to transcend a mystical line and cross over into the comical. I would bet my next hot dinner that someone, we are left to wonder who, had a great time making these prints, one way or another. A skeptic takes the stage. My talk on the Saturday night, A Skeptic's Guide to Passing the $1 Million Challenge, was very well attended and, despite having to stop from time to time to cough or catch my breath, went very well. I should mention I was suffering a nasty chest infection during the conference. It's rare indeed for a skeptic to talk to a room full of believers in the paranormal. The questions after were thoughtful and showed people had gained much from what I had to say. Andrea Caldi asked why we skeptics went after low-hanging fruit or in other words, what to her were easy targets, and not someone like John of God. Again, it seems she was referring to the talk by John Horgan. I replied that if any of the claims we tested turned out to be true, it would be a revolution to science. But also, we are in fact very critical of other claims, but do they come forward to us for testing? UFO, ET, and Spirit Contact Panel. I was joined on Sunday by Maynard, and together we sat in on a panel discussion that for this seasoned skeptic was an eye-opening experience. On the stage to give their points of view were Damien John Knott, UFO hunter, Cheryl Godshall, UFO Research Queensland, Marina Flynn, UFO Research New South Wales, and Barry Taylor, anomaly photographer. It's very hard to sum up the general discussion, but here are some of the highlights of things that were actually said from the stage to the audience. There has been a 70-year truth embargo by the US government on UFO matters. ETs and interdimensionals are visiting Earth. There are new human hybrids on the planet. One is called Mia. President Obama, as one of his last acts in office, will disclose the truth about UFOs. President Clinton, as one of her first acts in office, will disclose the truth about UFOs. There was a worldwide UFO wave in the 1990s. Some people became born-again Christians due to alien contact. Aliens, known as Greys, think of the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind, are here to make human-alien hybrids, but are also vegetarian. There is a secret base at Pine Gap. Yes, well, we know that, but at this base they are, and forgive me if I didn't get the details exactly right here, creating clone alien robots that can abduct humans. Friends of one of the speakers had just tried to break into Pine Gap. As the discussion progressed, it seemed to me that each member of the panel was trying to outdo the others in the grandeur of their claims. I really wondered how far these claims would go before someone stood up and said something, but it never happened. A trope emerged that I've heard many times over the years from groups who feel they have the truth, but also feel they are marginalised by the rest of society, such as creationists, 9/11 truthers, homeopaths, and so on. It goes something like, quote, more and more people are realising that our point of view is true, end quote, and, quote, any day now science will acknowledge our point of view, end quote. This is akin to various religious groups who use the cry of, quote, the end time is near, end quote, to keep the faithful on the hook. Trouble is, the end time never comes, but that doesn't stop the faithful. The subject of the skeptics was brought up, but I don't think for one moment it was due to my presence in the audience. I would imagine this is a common subject and a common gripe amongst believers. In a telling moment, Damien John Knott said, quote, the skeptics can shove it, end quote. But a moment later said they needed skeptics to keep them honest. From their point of view, we skeptics are indeed closed-minded, as we don't accept much, if not all, of the evidence put forward by the believers. This evidence consists to a huge degree of stories of the, quote, it happened to me, I know what I saw, end quote, variety. Also, they go out of their way to collect such stories from like-minded people who, for whatever reason or another, claim to have had experiences, ranging from sighting a UFO all the way to being in contact with aliens. So when they say they have mountains of evidence, it seems in reality all they have are mountains of stories. It is clear that these people place a great deal on accounts of events, and indeed to them the ultimate evidence, short of a spaceship landing on the White House lawn, would be a whistleblower from the US military. However, as skeptics know, without extraordinary supporting evidence, it really doesn't matter who or how high up the whistleblower is. As the panel progressed, the belief reinforcement loops in the room were becoming almost visible to the naked eye. I lasted as long as I could, my hands tired from furiously scribbling notes, but about 3/4 of the way through, Maynard suggested we head outside. I think he could see my brain was about to mutiny. After this, Maynard and I took the chance to interview some of the speakers and delegates, which you can hear on Skeptic Zone 397 and 398. And then we headed back home. I'd like to thank Alex Caius and his hard-working team for putting on an interesting event that was, at the end of the day, a time for believers in the paranormal to gather and discuss their common interests. It was gracious of them to have me on the bill, and I think I may have even helped open a few minds. At least, I can hope.
It never ends. A friend starts talking about his new Reiki master, and someone else posts about another all-natural cancer cure that they don't want you to know about. As skeptics, we dedicate a lot of time trying to protect those around us. But there's a way you can reach millions. Guerrilla Skepticism on Wikipedia is a group that is working to keep the best skeptical information at everyone's fingertips, in all languages. Join us. Training is self-paced and fun, and we have our very own super-secret Facebook group. You'll be educating the world in your sleep. To find out more, email us at gsowteam@gmail.com. Guerrilla Skepticism. The time is now.
Music by bensound.com.
Well, it's come to our attention that there's a spell being put about, cast. A spell to bind Donald Trump and all those who abet him, apparently. This is doing the rounds of the internet. It's quite funny. It's quite a lot of fun, really. I don't think Donald Trump has anything particularly to worry about, people chanting spells, but I thought I would read this out. Because it is an interesting thing. It sort of crosses into the paranormal in a big way, I think. And it's a bit odd, because I was told once quite bluntly by a witch that they don't actually cast spells. It doesn't work that way, apparently. So, make of this what you will. A spell to bind Donald Trump and all those who abet him. Version 2. To be performed at midnight on every waning crescent moon until he is removed from office. The first ritual takes place Friday evening, February the 24th. Oh, damn. At the stroke of midnight. This binding spell is open source and may be modified to fit your preferred spiritual practice or magical system. Components. In other words, what you'll need. Unflattering photo of Trump, small. Tarot card from any deck. Tiny stub of an orange candle. Cheap via Amazon. Pin or small nail. White candle representing the element of fire. Small bowl of water representing element water. Small bowl salt representing element earth. Feather, any, representing element air. Matches or a lighter. Ashtray or dish of sand. Optional. Piece of pyrite, fool's gold, sulfur, black thread for traditional binding variant. Baby carrot as substitute for orange candle stub. Baby carrot. Preparation. Write Donald J. Trump on the orange candle stub with a pin or nail. Arrange other items in a pleasing circle in front of you. Lean the tower card against something so it's standing up vertically. say a prayer for protection, and invoke blessing from your preferred spirit or deity. Or whatever one's available, I guess. Ritual, version 2.2. Light white candle. Insert sound effect here. Hear me, O spirits of water, earth, fire, and air, heavenly hosts, demons of the infernal realms, and spirits of the ancestors. Light inscribed orange candle stub. I call upon you to bind Donald J. Trump, so that his malignant works may fail utterly, that he may do no harm to any human soul, nor to any tree, nor to any tree, animal, rock, stream, or sea. Oh, it rhymes. Bind him so that he shall not break our polity, usurp or liberty, or fill our minds with hate, confusion, fear, or despair. And bind too all those who enable his wickedness, and those whose mouths speak his poisonous lies. I beseech these spirits, bind them all, as with chains of iron. Bind their malicious tongues, strike down their towers of vanity. Invert tower tarot card. I beseech thee, in my name. Say your full name. I beseech thee in my name, in the name of all who walk, crawl, swim, or fly, of all the trees, the forests, streams, deserts, rivers, and seas, and in the name of justice, and liberty, and love, and equality, and peace, bind them in chains, bind their tongues, bind their works, bind their wickedness. Light the small photo of Trump from the flame of the orange candle stub and hold carefully above the ashtray. Speak the following loudly with increasing passion as the photo burns to ashes. This is getting exciting. So mote it be. So mote it be. So mote it be. Blow out the orange candle, visualizing Trump blowing apart into dust or ash. It's a bit rough, isn't it? Pinch or snuff out the white candle, ending the ritual. Grounding and disposal. Afterwards, ground yourself by having a good hearty laugh. Yes, I think that would help. Jumping up and down, clapping your hands, stomping your feet, and having a bite to eat. I like the last bit. Grounding is very important. Don't neglect this. And remember, he hates people laughing at him. Finally, burn the orange candle stub and disregard it at a crossroads or in running water. So there you go. I don't think the Secret Service have anything to worry about if people sort of wander around in the nighttime chanting that spell. Rather than chanting spells, I think people should be more politically motivated to do things legally and through the political process. If they want to make their thoughts known about the administration, then there are proper ways to do it, I think, which are far more effective than chanting and doing that. They can even run for office themselves or encourage other people to vote. How about that? Anyway, that's enough for magic spells for one episode, I think. Now a special note for fans of Maynard at maynard.com.au. You can download your free Maynard calendar. Download, print out, whack on the wall. Spend 2017 with Maynard. For your free calendar, no strings attached. Well, you'll have to attach some strings to put it on the wall, or head for www.maynard.com.au. Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone, and thank you for staying on to listen to the magic spell, the binding spell. And thank you for all those people who wrote to me during the episode. Yes, the seafood was really nice, and the white sauce with the vegetables. Oh, an old favourite. Now, earlier on today, Sunday, the 26th of February, when I'm recording this, here in Australia, we had, in the morning, or through the late night to morning, we had George Haraba, my old friend. He had his 500th episode of his podcast, and it was live. It was live on Facebook. It was fantastic. And right towards the end, one of his guests was none other than our own Maynard, who used my studio here at the Skeptic Zone to do his live bit to Geo. A link in the show notes. Check it out. Maynard was really funny. It was a great segment. I was sort of hiding off camera, passing him things. A live video hookup, Geo and Maynard. And congratulations, Geo. 500 episodes. I'm catching up. I am. This is episode 436. So a little bit down the track, maybe the Skeptic Zone will also celebrate 500 episodes. Have to find an interesting location to do that from. Well, naturally, I'd like it to be from Atlanta, Georgia, where the Skeptic Zone was launched all those years ago in 2008. But we'll see. Coming up on next week's episode of The Zone, a special report from Maynard, who speaks to a group of genetic scientists involved in genetic cataloguing of botany, plants and things. Really interesting stuff. Not very skeptical, not particularly, although he does cover things like big cats, mysterious big cats. Hear how these people go about their everyday work as genetic scientists. A fascinating report coming up next week. And also don't forget to visit maynard.com.au for his podcasts and your free downloadable Maynard calendar. But for this week, this is Richard Saunders signing off from Sydney, Australia. You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for contacts, an archive of all episodes since 2008, and our online store. Please support the Skeptic Zone by following us on Twitter @SkepticZone, liking us on Facebook, and leaving a review on iTunes. You can also show your support by subscribing via PayPal for as little as 99 cents a week. The Skeptic Zone is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed on the Skeptic Zone are not necessarily those of Australian Skeptics Inc. or any other skeptical organisation.